Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by DKI Canada. Across the street, across the country. He is one of Canada's most accomplished sports hosts and anchors, Michael Landsberg. And the work he's done for mental health in this country is off the charts. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up! Our guest today hails from Toronto. He was a radio sports anchor and reporter, one of the original hires at TSN SportsDesk anchor for a long time, co-host of First Up, multiple Olympic hosting assignments, multiple Gemini Award nominations. He won the Humanitarian Award at the Canadian Screen Awards, longtime host of Off the Record, founder of Sick Not Weak. Welcome to the program, Michael Landsberg. Michael, great to have you here.
Joe, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Doing really well.
Yeah. Just by the way, I when I was listening to what you were saying, thank you for that kind introduction. But nominations are not victories. So no Gemini Awards for me. And the only awards that I won, I didn't really win. They were kind of given to me, like Humanitarian Award. It's not like I always wanted to beat out like James Duthie. Like the nominees are Ron McLean, James Duthie, and Michael Landsberg, and the winner is Michael Landsberg. And then I could, like just, I don't know, wave it in their
strut up there.
Yes, thank you.
I told you. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
No one believed it. Well, let me take you. Let's go back to the very beginning, Michael. So, were you always going to be a sportscaster? Was that the dream?
Tell me, do I have a couple of minutes to tell you the story?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Take your time, whatever. Yeah.
So you need some background to sort of understand how I ended up in broadcasting, and you need to know a bit about me. So I came from a very professional background. My dad was an orthodontist. I only had one uncle, and he was a chartered accountant. My brother, who's 4 years older than me, but was 5 years ahead of me in school, he accelerated. I didn't fail. My brother is a genius and got a scholarship to U of T medical school specialty. Like people paid him to come. So that's all I really knew was, what do you do after you graduate from, for me, it was grade 13. Yeah. You go to the University of Toronto, where my dad taught as well, and you go to a professional school. No one ever told me to do that. My parents never said, so what are you going to do? They, for some reason, believed that I would find my way. But I was lost, totally lost. I was at U of T, and the only goal I chose my courses based on ones that didn't have final exams. It's genius if you think about it. So I was finished school in March because they didn't have finals, but that wasn't leading me to anywhere. There was nothing I wanted. I had, at the time, not been diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia, but clearly everything about my scholastic career was related to that. So I'm in third year. I've already been put on probation in second year. I'm going to take an exam in November, and I'm parking my mom's car in front on Harbert Street at U of T. And I'm going to take a test. And I had this moment where I went, you know what? Screw it. I'm not taking the test. I'm just going to find out that I'm a failure. I'm just going to find out that I failed. Tomorrow, I'm going to go into U of T radio and see if there's anything there for me, because all my life, sports was by far the most important thing. And the only thing I was really good at was kind of being a sports fan and talking about sports. And I thought, that's what I want to do. But I never knew anyone who did it. Like there was not a single role model for me where you could point and say, well, he or she made it in broadcasting. I can too. So I walked in, U of T radio, not the bar's not set very high. And within 30 seconds of walking in, I was on the air. And I remember pushing down the button. A red light went on the button and I started talking. And that changed my life. It was like, oh my God, there's a place for me in this world. Oh my God, like I want this. I think I can be good at this. And that was this revelation to me that changed the course of my life. And everything I did in the next, say, 5-6 years was devoted to developing skill and getting better on the air.
That's pretty funny, pretty close to what I was doing. I was taking drama at the University of Alberta, and I started working I just went into the campus radio station. I'd say, I want to do some sportscasts. And they said, okay, you start tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, be here at 8 o'clock and you can start do a sportscast. And by the way, on Saturday night, you're going to be the third man in the booth at the Golden Bears hockey game.
Okay. Unbelievable. Yeah.
That's how fast it happens, right?
So so I go in that day, and the sports director, a highly esteemed person in my world at that point, is like, oh my God, he's the sports director of U of T Radio. And he said, do you want to do play-by-play for football? So it's like, okay, yeah, I'd love to do that. So it's raining outside. I remember this because these are like, pretty important moments in my life. I show up, and the person I was working with or going to work with on the air was there as well. And that person was Steve Paikin.
Of course.
Yeah, crazy though, when you think that, what are the chances the two guys on campus radio would actually make it into the field? I mean, the odds had to be like 1 in a million. But Paikin and I got to be really good buddies. He was in my wedding party. I was in his wedding party. Steve is an unbelievably good broadcaster, and we kind of felt our way through the business together.
A legend, absolutely. We've had Steven on the show before. Great guy, and the best, really, in his field when it comes to interviews and hosting and everything else. He can do it all. So, so how do you go from campus radio at U of T to TSN?
So third year U of T, I fail out, but I was smart enough. I mean, barely smart enough, but smart enough to realize I want to go to Ryerson for radio and television. And I don't think if I send them my marks, I don't think I'm going to get in with my 42% average. I just think, it was competitive to get into, right? So I made up this whole story about how I didn't go to any post-secondary until that point. I was applying to Ryerson. I knew that Ryerson frowned upon people who had already been subsidized by the government. So I said, I've been painting houses, which was true, which is what I did during the summer.
Okay.
But I said, I'm painting houses, and this is going to be, this is my chance to go to post-secondary school. And I got into Ryerson and spent the next 3 years doing nothing. I would take anything that got me on the air. Like all the guys I went to school with, there was about 15 of us that wanted to do sports. And I was the only one who was saying, I will do anything to get on the air. I will do anything to get better. I will ask anyone for their opinion to make me better. And it was funny because they all thought they were really good. But Joe, we know at the beginning, everybody sucks. And I was aware of that. And that was a real asset for me. Like humility, the idea that, wow, I got to get a lot better was huge. So I got a job actually at CFRB, which is now News Talk 1010, while I was going through school. I ended up getting a chance to do sports on the weekend, which I begged them for. When I graduated, I sent demo tapes out. I wasn't ready for TV, I didn't think. I sent radio demos out, and I got a job at CHFI. I went in, and the program director said, Michael, we'd like you to do weekend news. Are you comfortable with that? I went, are you kidding? Of course I'm comfortable. I live for news. I had never read the front section of a newspaper. It was only there to keep the sports section dry in case of rain. I didn't know how to pronounce any world leaders' names. I was just this idiot when it came to everything outside of sports. So I was lucky enough to be on the air, and TSN, someone showed me an ad in, I think it was a Toronto Star, saying TSN, a sports network is going to be starting up, and they're looking for on-air talent. So I applied, and somehow, I got an audition, and Michael Landsberg. Do you know that name?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was a
producer
director
for TSN.
Yeah,
director.
So
producer.
he was the first. He was the first program director at TSN, which, by the way, was known as the Action Sports Network, before we went on the air, and they ended up changing that. So Michael Landsberg calls me up, and Michael Landsberg is he's a kind of he plays the role of the classic manager. I go, hello. He goes, Landsberg, why would I audition you? I go, who is this? He goes, Michael Landsberg, why would I audition you? I go, because I can do the job. And he said, and I remember this so distinctly. He said, why would I hire you when I can hire a million guys who are already on the air and you've never been on the air? And I said, why assume that someone can't do it just because they haven't done it? Right? I haven't done it, but don't assume that I can't do it. Give me an audition. And if it stinks, tell me I never want to see you again. And he said, okay, fine. Like he was playing this, I'm a tough guy card. And I went in for the audition. I was so ready for it. Joe, I'm sure you understand it. Like I wanted it so badly. I prepared so much, and I ended up getting the job. And I look back at it now. I was 25. I looked like I was, maybe 14. And still to this day, it's like, wow, how did they put me on the air looking like that? But it was, one of the biggest breaks that anyone in Canadian broadcasting ever got, right? Because I had no experience whatsoever.
Well, that was pretty crazy. I mean, it was kind of like me getting from Lethbridge to Toronto, CFTO, sending a tape out and having, Fergie Albert quit the day after they got my tape.
How did you find out? You got the job?
Well, Terry Ann Manone, who became Terry Ann Marsden, called me and said, hi, we got your tape. But by the way, back then I was still Clarence, right? So Clarence was my real name is Clarence Tilley. So she called me up and said, Mr. Marsden got your tape and he wants to talk to you. Well, she said, Pat, of course. And then Pat said, will you take a call from Pat later on today? And I said, absolutely. And so he called me and said, we want you to come in for an interview. And so he called me in for an interview, picked me up at the airport. We went for drinks in my hotel room and had some laughs and talked about sports. And then the next day I met the bosses. And after the meeting with the bosses, Pat said, what's your middle name? I said, Joseph. And he said, what do you think about calling yourself Joe Tilley? And I said, for me, it's coming to Toronto. You can call me shithead. I don't care. It's fine with me. And so anyway, that's how I got that.
How did you feel? How did you feel when you heard that?
Spectacular. There's a saying in a book I like to read called, the saying is, I had arrived. And that's what I felt like. I had arrived. And this is the big time. And I had no idea. This wasn't even in my zeitgeist when I was first starting out. I wanted to be at CFRN. I wanted Al McCann's job at CFRN TV in Edmonton because growing up in Edmonton, that's what I wanted to do. But getting this kind of a gig, that was pretty special. And as it was for you. And so here you are, one of the original hires, the Black Jackets. And what was TSN like in those early days? For you? Okay.
4 of us. You probably get one or two of the other ones. So there was 4 on-air broadcasters.
Peter Watts.
Peter Watts was actually, I'm going to give you a half mark on that because Peter Watts and Steve Cooney joined TSN about 6 weeks after we went on the air. They were not one of the originals. So
Jim Van Horn,
John Wells, and Terry Leibel. And
me.
And
wow.
It was.
They had a lot of experience, those guys, Mike. I mean, there's you, right?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I have lost touch with John a long time ago when he left TSN. But I see Jim Van Horn, every couple of years. And, I would say we're buds, right? As much as you can be buds with someone that you don't see very often. So I'm saying I like him a lot. And he had a great on-air style, this authoritative voice.
Right.
But there was a definite not rivalry so much as two different camps. There was Landsberg here and Wells and Van Horn here. Landsberg thought that it should all be about having fun. It should all be about energy and enthusiasm, and it should all come from me. Like, I shouldn't have other people writing for me. I want to write it my own way and make it unique. Yeah. And those guys were much more traditional. And there was, I won't say there was a clash, but there was, I could see it in their eyes. I could see him looking at me like, what's this guy doing? You know, like, he's ad-libbing a highlight. How can he do that? You can't do that. And I think that was an advantage for me, because it pushed me really hard to make sure that what I was doing to the best of my ability, because I knew that there were some people that didn't love it.
It was putting your spin, your mark on it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you definitely had your style.
Yeah, I had my style, and here's what I always said. And you had a style. You know, like, you were Joe Tilley. There was not a single other person that you could say, well, they're doing the same thing as me. I had this vow. I said, every word that I write is going to have a bit of me in it. So if I was doing a lead up to a Leaf game, the way others would do it would be, hey, 3 games in the NHL tonight. The Toronto Maple Leafs, winners of 2 of their last 3, took on the Boston, whatever, like traditional, just the facts. And I decided, you know what? I don't want to do that, because anybody can do that. I want this to be me. And here's the point I was going to make. I didn't care whether you liked me. The only thing I cared about was whether you respected me for trying to make this original and fresh. I can say, after all those broadcasts, I never took the easy way out. You know, like, everything I ever wrote or did was uniquely mine, which made it uniquely mine. And it really stinks. Like, that's happened sometimes. But when you heard it, you knew it was some guy who was trying to make a statement.
Well, we have a short clip. This is from about 30 years ago with you on the desk. It was after the Black Jackets, obviously, talking about the suspension of former NHL player Rick Zombo for slashing linesman Kevin Collins. Let's have a look.
Estimations about Zombo's possible suspension anywhere from 5 to 20 games. Well, the league gave him 10 games today. Now, Zombo did his dirty work January the 9th against the Dallas Stars. Collins actually.
So that's all the clip we have from that. But I got from that from Paul Patsko. Paul has an amazing sports library, by the way. It's unbelievable. So, first of all, you looked really, really good, man. You were a good-looking dude, and I'm sure that was helpful. And tell us about your style right there. You noticed. Okay.
You know, I mean, that was a basic news story that was, there wasn't a lot of room necessarily on that, you know, suspension of a guy for hacking a linesman. It's bizarre. I'm sure you find this too, to watch yourself doing things that you have no memory of, right? You know,
right. Sure.
When you do daily television, it's not like, I mean, it's long forgotten a week later. But, you know, my style was to say things in a Landsberg way. And it was really important for me to try and make it different and interesting. I mean, I never believed that sports was like news, because I was a former newscaster at CHFI on the weekends. Mm-hmm. I've always thought that, you know, sports is all about the entertainment. So I used to, working in the TSN newsroom when I did SportsDesk, which was the name of that show that you showed the clip. There would be a group of people that would work and they would be picking highlights. So there'd be like 6 or 7 people working every night, and each one would have a game or two to pick the highlights, and they would write the script for the announcer. But I had a rule, which was, don't write me a script. Just give me the points. So first, I mean, these wouldn't be the names, but first period, Leafs already down 1-0. Oh, sorry. First period, 1-0 Florida. Sam Reinhart, 4th of the playoffs. That's all I wanted. And then I would watch the screen and I would do it, which meant that it was me and all of what I could think of at the time, the fun that I could have. And sometimes, I'm sure I stumbled through it because I wasn't reading a script, but that's what I loved. That was like, for me, that was why I did the job, was the chance to be me. And I'm really thankful for having got the chance to be me.
Kind of like doing a play-by-play, right? It's kind of like doing a play-by-play,
Totally.
your own play-by-play version of it. You got a couple of points, just like a normal play-by-play guy would have the numbers and the names, and you go from there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing was that you needed the points because you wouldn't know on your own. You wouldn't know what the score was and what time it was and what the situation was. So you needed something like 3-1 Leafs after they trailed 1-0. Like, that has to be written for you because you don't know it from watching the highlights. But I was such a sports fan at that time that I could literally watch highlights from almost any game and have a pretty good idea who everybody was. So it was like, okay, no notes. I'm okay with that too. Just tell me what the situation is. And that's kind of me, right? It was like, I'm going to do it in a way that nobody else is going to do it. That doesn't mean it's going to be better, but it's going to be me. And that was really important to me.
Well, I think that's, you being you and doing things your way. I think that's probably, I want to transition now into Off the Record and how that came to be. But it seems like it was a perfect venue for you to for your talents to shine, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, and that was purposeful. So the way it worked was Keith Pelley, who has made his mark in a million different ways. Yeah. So Keith Tilley got the job as vice president of programming at TSN. And he came to me, like, one of the first things he did was he said, do you want to host a talk show? And it was like, yeah. He said, okay, we're going to do a talk show at 6:00, which was a throwaway time slot for TSN at the time. They played there because SportsDesk was on at 6:30. All they played at 6:00 was American programming, right? So they would have an American talk show, or it was just filler. So they weren't risking anything. He said, I want you to do a talk show. I want to call it Off the Record. And I want to put you and 3 TSN personalities on the show. And you guys will talk about sports. And I thought about it and I said, okay, Keith, if that's the way you want to do it, I'll do it. But I think it'd be way more engaging. And I kind of threw him a bone here. I said, if you put 1 TSN personality on, and then we get 2 other people from any aspect of life, because politically incorrect was big at the time. So it was finding people who had a measure of fame in one area and then getting them to talk, in our case, about sports, another area. And that we would talk more about social, moral, and political issues about sports rather than, like, who should the Leafs be playing in third line center? So he goes, I don't know. I go, let us give it a shot. So we did. And first week we were on the air, we had Bret Hart as a guest on a panel. Wow. That probably is the reason why the show was successful. Because after he was on, he took me aside and said, Michael, Bret's very, very soft-spoken. Michael, I like the show. I like being on. I like you. Put me on again. Wow. But don't put me on with anyone. I can carry this show. And we hadn't really thought about making it a one-on-one interview show, but it was like, okay, well, he's Bret Hart. TSN broadcast Raw at the time. And the way that shook down was when he had his fight with Vince at Survivor Series in Montreal, he called us and said, I want to come on and talk about it. So he did. And then Vince, who obviously was watching because he wanted to know what Bret was saying about him after he punched him and spit on him, Vince said, I want to come on and I want to share my side of the story. And then after that, Vince said, you can have anybody on the roster that you want. We see this as a partnership with TSN, and I like what you're doing, and you can interview them out of character. Like, we had no interest in interviewing, The Rock.
Oh, Hogan.
Yeah. But we had an interest in interviewing not The Rock, but Dwayne Johnson. Right. I mean, you wanted to know, like, you didn't know anything about these people, and they were never allowed to speak out of character, ever, ever, ever. And Vince said they could. And that became gold for us. We did an interview with Steve Austin, and it was replayed on a holiday Monday, and it got 450,000 viewers at 6:00.
Holy
400. Crap. Like, honestly, if you did a sports show on TSN now at 6:00 and you had the ghost of the Rocket Richard, Jesus Christ, and Moses on the set, you couldn't get 450,000 people. And this had nothing to do with me saying, wow, like, look how many people watched. It was the power of wrestling and the power of having people out of character. And, it's crazy. No way a week goes by without someone on the street yelling, hey, Landsberg, love those wrestling interviews. They were so massive for us. And they were really good. And you know why they were really good, Joe?
Why?
Not because of me. Because Jeff Merrick, who people in the sports business know.
Oh, yeah, I know Jeff. Been on the show, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jeff hosted a show called Live Audio Wrestling. So it was a radio show about wrestling. He knew everything. He knew everyone. He knew all the backstories. He had sources. And he was best friends with Bob Makowitz, who was the producer of Off the Record. So the three of us would sit down the day before we had a guest like Mick Foley or Steve Austin or Dwayne Johnson or Mark Calloway, who was The Undertaker. And Jeff would give me gold. I remember saying to The Undertaker, so is it true there was a house show one time when Rob Van Dam came out and didn't do the job for Vince, which is a way of saying that he was supposed to lose, but he didn't. Is that true? He goes, yeah. I said, is it true that you told him to get back out there and lose, or you beat the crap out of him? He said, yeah, that would be true. How'd you know that? And it was like, got my job. But so that put us on the map. And it's funny, I did so many shows over the course of my career. I think I'm only remembered for one thing. Hey, you're that guy who talked to those wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, actually, we have some of the top moments from Off the Record. At TSN, right? And here's the top 5. Let's roll that.
Lyndon Byers, you said you'd do it. Did you do it?
Yes, of course I did, Mike. There it is, OTR logo, surrounded by some flames, shaded nicely.
You asked me off camera if we saw each other at UFC 182 if I was going to big league you.
Big time was the term.
So you want to play innocent and defensive when you're not on camera, and then when you get on camera, you want to act like you're hot.
No,
I appreciate that.
No, you don't appreciate that.
I like your gimmick, kid.
No,
I love it. I love it.
No, you don't love it, first of all. And it is disrespectful somewhat to be drinking coffee or tea while you're in the middle of an interview. I don't know if you do that all the time, but
I got to stay awake on TSN. I need my caffeine.
What does Landsberg versus Team mean?
It just means that on this show, I rule. We're out of time. Thanks for joining us, okay?
I mean, goodness. Ain't no way you rule because Stone Cold Steve Austin rules. Gene Simmons, now you claim to have had sex with 4,500 women.
I will not be number 4,563.
I want to be 4,501. I love this show. What is your offer and challenge to Anderson Silva?
Well, I would love to clarify it, and if I had enough respect for you and your show, I would probably do it. But
okay, so you don't care if you lose to Anderson Silva?
What is this like gotcha questions? Let's just move. This is turning confrontational here.
You're leaving now because of what reason? Perhaps.
Wow. So I guess I'll get you to comment on a couple of your favorites from there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could give you a comment. I'll talk quickly because there's 5 of them. Do you remember what was number 5? Oh, it was Lyndon Byers. Lyndon Byers, yes. Former NHL tough guy. One of the loveliest guys that I've met. We communicate still on a weekly basis for sure. Lyndon Byers, we put on with Rob Ray to do a segment once a week, and it was gold, right? Like one of those where any idiot could host this. They understood that it was all about confrontation, and Lyndon Byers was just a great guy. And he kept saying to me, Michael, thank you for putting me on. He lives in Boston. He played for the Bruins because my mom lives in, I think it was Kelowna. my mom lives in Kelowna and she can watch me on TV. Thank you. She hasn't seen me on TV. She hasn't seen me in years because he did something where he wasn't allowed to cross the border to go visit her. So that was Lyndon Byers' first. Number 4 was, I'm trying to remember what it was. Okay, so there were a few others that doesn't matter what order they're in. The one with, the last one, Chael Sonnen. So I was at spin class and the spin instructor says to me, Michael, you got to get Chael Sonnen on off the record. Chael Sonnen was a big UFC fighter at the time. And I said to Vlad, the spin instructor, why? And he said, he's the best talker. And he was like an amazing talker. So we booked him. And then the day before I said, what should I ask him? And he said, you got to give him a hard time. Kind of like spar with him, like he's great at that. He's the king. So, do something that might make him mad. Well, I did something that might make him mad and he got mad and it wasn't fake. We've all done it's just showbiz, right? We've all sort of done fake arguments, but he was genuinely pissed and he left. And that became a huge thing. For us, it's kind of like, okay, well, was that a bad thing or a good thing? Many would say it's a bad thing. It was a great thing. CM Punk, the second last one, who was chirping me about, you want to be my buddy. So the best part of that story is that, again, same thing, CM Punk. CM Punk was a professional wrestler in WWE, an amazing talker. And he decided he was going to go and fight in UFC. And that's how we got him. We got him through UFC. And this is before he started before he actually formally joined the UFC. So I thought, first question I'm going to ask him is, so have you ever taken a real punch? Boxing, wrestling is unbelievably dangerous, but the punches are not real, right? That's not what it is. Guys aren't punching each other in the head. Right. And he said, what? I said, well, have you ever taken a real punch? And he said, have you ever seen one of my matches? And I went, yeah, not a real punch. And it went downhill from there. So Chael Sonnen one was a crappy show for me. I didn't do a good job with that. And, it was my intention to push his buttons, but I don't think I did it very well. But CM Punk, I'll stand by that. I'll stand by the question. His wife was still working for WWE and he was suing WWE for medical malpractice. So I said to him, is it harder for your wife because, her husband is suing the company? And I'm not going to talk about that. And he was mad. I didn't mind him saying, I don't want to talk about that, but he was genuinely mad. And how about this? 2 weeks later, it's the Christmas holidays. My family's, we go to Las Vegas, and I knew Dana White really well through the show, and he gave us second row seats for UFC 185. And I remember that because sitting 5 seats down, CM Punk and his wife. So I say to my family, look, I don't want to be the guy who's a big talker, on TV and then sort of backs away. So I said, I'm going over there. So I said to Corey, my son, you shoot this. And I said to Casey, my daughter, you come with me because there's less chance he'll punch me if I'm with you. So we went over there and I said, hey, I don't even know if you know what I look like, right? Because the show, they did not have a return feed. He was in New York. I could see him. He couldn't see me. So I said, I don't know, even though I'm Michael Landsberg from TSN, I don't even know if you know what I look like or whatever. He goes, I know what you look like. And it was like, whoa, this is going to get ugly. I said, yeah, I obviously you're mad. And if I wasn't what you thought I was going to be, if this was, more of a hard-hitting interview than you expected, then I apologize for that. I didn't realize what was told to you in advance. He just looks at me, and his wife now is looking at me like she wants to kill me. And it's this, I actually have a still shot of it. There's this look on her face, especially, which is, you better get out of here, kid. Or not kid, but that was a high point, even though others might look at it like a low point.
Yeah, you sure got under skin. That's for sure. So, but you did it in a professional way. So, what are you going to do? You ask him a question that was a legitimate question. So, what is the? Did he ever get punched in the face? By the way, did he ever? How did he respond to that? No, him. No, you. Did you ever get punched in the face?
I never got punched in the face. And my rule with the control room was the only thing you can't do if someone gets really pissed at me and they make it physical or it looks like it's going to get physical. The only thing you can't do is stop rolling, because if I get punched,
yes,
I want people to be able to see it. I want to be like, hey, did you see that guy on TSN, the guy with the big mouth who's always asking these tough questions or these questions that, oh man, he really got it.
Yeah.
Like, just make sure you don't come from the control room to save me. Just keep rolling.
Right.
So I never did get punched in the face, although there was a couple of people who I'm pretty sure wanted to, including, I'll think of the name, a pretty well-known actor in the States. So, and he never told me whether he ever got punched in the face. And he only lasted, I think, one fight in UFC. It was ridiculous, right? You can't go into a pro sport at the very top and assume that you're going to be able to learn how to do it in a couple of months.
Yeah, and wrestling versus UFC, there's a substantial difference between the two entertainment ideas. So let's talk about when did you first realize that you had with your mental health struggles? When did you first realize you had a problem, and what did you do to deal with it?
So I knew I had something when I was a kid. I had anxieties that other kids didn't have. I had something, still do, something called emetophobia. That is the fear of throwing up. That is the fear of not just you throwing up, being around someone who throws up, seeing vomit on the road. Like, these were I was just gripped with fear that I couldn't explain why. And at the time, and this shows you the value of hearing that other people understand you. There was no other person on the planet that I believed had this thing, this fear of throwing up, emetophobia. None. If I would have known when I was 12 years old that there was a name for it, that it was actually, it was in medical journals, it was described, that it actually was not terribly uncommon, that would have changed how I saw myself, because I just thought I'm the only one for sure. And anxiety was a huge problem for me, not just that, but just in general. There were things I wouldn't do that other kids did. They would ride on a bus to go to camp. I wouldn't do that for fear that the guy beside me was going to puke. I wouldn't sleep over at other kids' homes. There was a whole bunch of things that were on the no-fly list for me because of that. So I carried that through into adulthood. Anxiety was always a problem. When I was when Casey, our daughter, was 3.5, she was diagnosed with a serious eye condition. And that just, it affected me in a way that would affect any parent, right? When you go to the eye doctor for the first time and she can't see the big E on the eye chart, any parent is going to be devastated by that. But I lived my life in a constant state of panic, I think, since that day. But what I found over time was that when I was panicked, when I was like freaking out, obsessed with it, eventually I would fall into a depression. It was like maximum anxiety for me took me into this deep, dark hole of depression. And I had no idea at first that that's what it was. I had no idea. I heard my father-in-law say, wow, Michael's changed more than anyone I've ever met. And I thought, what's he talking about? I've changed. I've been changed. And then I sat down and I thought about it. And I thought about all the things that I no longer did, all of the ways that things that used to bring me joy that no longer brought me joy, all of the confidence that I had, that people always accused me of being arrogant. If they still saw that in me, it was all manufactured because I didn't believe in me. I thought I was worthless. But I didn't know that I had depression because it happened so slowly, tiny change. And that's one of the things I try to alert people of. You may not know that you really need help. I didn't know. until I heard my father-in-law say that, and I forensically evaluated my life the previous 8-9 months. And I came to the conclusion, I'm sick, and I'm really sick. And that got me in to see a psychiatrist. And that was kind of the start of this next chapter in my life, which is, dealing with depression. Then in 2008, I was in Montreal shooting Off the Record at the Grey Cup, 11/24/08 YUL MH5210400. November 24th, 2008, YUL is the Montreal airport code. Marriott Hotel, room 521, 4 a.m. in the morning. I sat on the edge of my bed, and I'd been sick for a year. I'd been off medication. My wife kept telling me, you got to go back on, you go back on. And I didn't want to, because nobody wants to be on meds. And I was sitting there in my hotel room, and I thought, I understand suicide. It was like impossible to understand until this moment, because we all have this survival instinct, right? Like, one of the things that my anxiety did to me was make me worry about my health. But here I am sitting on the edge of this bed and thinking, I'm more afraid to have to live with the pain that I'm in than dying. And that was obviously a moment that resonated with me, that has stuck with me, and that has made me want to talk about it, because other people hearing that story and other details about it can make a difference in their lives. So I came back, I went back on meds. A year later, I was feeling pretty good. We had a guy named Stéphane Richer, who you would know, longtime Montreal Canadian, Tampa Bay Lightning, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. I read that he battled depression through his career. So I went into the green room and I asked him to come out for a second. I said, look, Stéphane, you don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Would it be okay, though, if I asked you how you're doing with depression? And he said, I don't like to talk about it. It's painful. And I said, well, would it help if I talked about it? And he said, what would you talk about? So I told him a bit of my story, and he said, okay, let's do it. We went on the air, Joe. I'd never spoken ever about mental illness on TV, because I thought, who would care, right? Like, why would I mention it? I didn't realize there was this awful stigma. So I say to him, hey, Stéphane, before we go to break, tell me, or tell us how you're doing. I know you battled depression throughout your career. And I know that I want to know how that affected you, not in terms of your performance, but in terms of, your enjoyment of the game. He said, imagine, Montreal kid, drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, rookie of the year in the NHL, last Canadian to score 50 goals. I win the Stanley Cup for the Montreal Canadiens, and I never felt any joy. None. Nothing made me happy at the time. All I wanted to do was go home and get into bed and get away from everything and everyone. And I remember saying, well, that resonates with me. Obviously, I haven't had the success that you've had, but just the idea that you couldn't feel joy when something previously joyous happened to you, that makes me think, me too. And that was it. And the show went to air, and I thought, that was an interesting question that I asked him. That's a job, but I wasn't trying to do anything good for people. Then all of a sudden, the show goes to air, and I start getting emails directed to the show and forwarded to me. Hey, Michael, watching you and Stéphane Richer talk about depression was the first time in my life I've seen two men talking about it. The fact that you didn't seem ashamed or embarrassed, and that Stéphane Richer didn't seem weak, has empowered me to reach out and tell you something I've never told another person. Like you, I have battled depression, but unlike you, I've never gone for help. I was too ashamed, but now I'm going to go for help over and over again. I saw these emails, and that 180 degrees changed the course of my life.
So, I've been in that place where it just, you're in that funk. You just doesn't feel like there's any way out. And it's a hopeless place, isn't it? Like, it's just so hopeless.
Yeah. Hopeless is, there's a few words like, I have spoken about this now every single day, I think, for a decade, for sure, every single day. And I've given 150 speeches to every imaginable audience in every province and territory in Canada. So I know this shit because I've spoken. First of all, I've gone through it, but second of all, I've had thousands of conversations with people. And there's a few things we all experience with depression. Every single one of us, not most of us, every one of us. When I give a speech, I'll say, I'm going to tell you what I experienced with depression. And if you didn't feel the same thing, then please put up your hand and tell me. No one has ever put up their hand. Every single person has nodded their head and went, me too. And hopelessness that you mentioned, that's one of the symptoms that goes with the illness. The belief that I'm never getting out of this. I'm in this horrible place. My life is devoid of joy and I'm here permanently. I'm not getting better. And I think that sense of hopelessness is one of the most dangerous aspects of depression.
How did you come up with the idea of sick, not weak?
I was giving one of the first speeches I gave was at Mount Sinai Hospital to a group of young professionals. And I think it was the first speech. And I said, look, I expected that some of you would speak up and say, oh, mental illness isn't like physical illness. Like here we are in a hospital and people are having surgery and people have chronic illnesses and people have cancer and heart disease. I expected someone to say, hey, I know that depression's bad, but come on, it's not like those other things. But no one seemed to be willing to do that. So I said, is anyone willing to sort of not fight the other side? Like, I'll respect this. I'm not going to be mad if you say that, maybe, Michael, you're weak because you need treatment for depression. One guy put up his hand and said, okay. I said, so what do you think? And he said, well, I know it sounds like it's a bad thing, but let's face it, it's not like you have cancer. Right? It's not like you have an illness that is going to disable you or kill you. And I said, thank you for taking that stand. It's important for us to debate. And I sort of gave my side of the picture. And I said, but I'm sick, but I'm not weak. That's where I would put this. What category does mental illness go into? And I would say it goes into the category of sickness with an asterisk that says not weak. And it kind of just stuck. Like, I have no idea when I kind of officially made it, my hashtag or whatever. But I wanted to do something more, something broader. So I looked at starting a not-for-profit. You can't get a charity license right away. We got a not-for-profit, started doing some stuff, and then we got our charity license. And our mandate was simply to show Canadians that mental illness is a sickness, not a weakness. And if we could do that, if you believed actually that, oh, it's a sickness, then the stigma would disappear. Gone. But it's not gone because still there's the perception, even though people don't say it, the perception is, I don't want my boss to find out, man. Like, he's going to think I'm weak and, he's not going to look at me the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an alcoholic, and I feel the same way. It's like I don't care who knows that, and I have no problem with that. And I look at that as sick, not weak, as well. And it's like, I think that the strength is in being honest with yourself about it, and doing something to change, right? Doing something, whatever it takes to get well, to feel okay. And so there's nothing that's going to stop me from wanting to do that. So we have a clip from a Sick Not Weak presentation. You were joined by fellow TSN mate Tessa Bonham, and let's roll a clip of that, Vic.
My aunt passed away. She had always said to me, it doesn't matter what kind of charity work you do, always make sure that you're taking care of the mentally sick. And, people need to have a voice for them, and we need to make this okay, because she grew up in a time where it wasn't okay to talk about it. And just watching the way she was in the end of her life, I mean, I wouldn't want that for anyone.
A couple of years ago at Cameco, we made the commitment that from that day forward, nobody at Cameco or in our families would have to suffer in silence, that we would be there to try and help. And so we maintain that commitment today, and this was just really reinforcement by Michael Landsberg and his team that there's help out there for people. And I just encourage anybody that is looking for help or wants someone to talk to, just to reach out to us, and we'll be there.
reiterates what we've been talking about, but it must feel good to get that kind of support and to have that.
Yeah, that was quite the adventure. That was North Battleford, Saskatchewan. The big audience was in the Civic Center. Someone had told me that they had 3 teenage suicides in one semester. And I thought we should go out there and do an event and try to bring some meaning to it and, maybe, help people a little bit through it. So we went to North Battleford. We wanted to put on a show, but I couldn't organize it. There were so many things that had to be done to get the Civic Center, to get the stage it, to get sound, all of that. And I knew someone at Cameco because they had sponsored Mike Babcock's event the previous summer, and I emceed that event. And I met a guy from Cameco, Jonathan Huntington. And I thought, he's the only guy I know in Saskatchewan. He's in Saskatoon. So I called him. I said, this is what we want to do. He goes, done. We'll do everything for you. This is, we know all the, AV people. We'll do this for you. You only have to agree to 2 things. Number 1, you have to agree to come to Cigar Lake, which is where their big uranium mine is, and speak to our workers. It's very isolated. And number 2, we employ a lot of Indigenous people. And we want you to go up to a place called Fond du Lac, Saskatchewan, and speak to that community. And it was like, okay, well, that's amazing. That's what I want to do. So they chartered a plane, and it wasn't a small plane. We did the event in North Battleford and then flew up to Cigar Lake and then to Fond du Lac, Saskatchewan. And it was an amazing adventure. Just so many things I walked away with that I didn't have when I arrived there. And that's like what you showed is kind of a real highlight. And by the way, Wade Belak, who was my buddy, who obviously died by suicide, was from North Battleford, Saskatchewan.
Wow. Yeah, you could see everybody was, locked in, glued to the presentation. They were, it was great. You've received some awards. As you mentioned, you didn't win them, but you received them. And I want to talk about the Canadian Screen Awards. We have a clip from that one. Let's roll that one, Vic.
Here with Michael Landsberg. How does it feel to be the recipient of the very prestigious Humanitarian Award this evening?
Is it prestigious?
I think so.
It just started to feel better then. It's great. Anytime someone invites you and your family to come and get an award, it's great. Although I hear it is. It's never happened before, really. I've been nominated a few times, but I think this is funny because my dad said to me, so you're actually going to win this, right?
It sounds like your dad had a good sense of humor, huh?
My dad did. That night was significant for me, more because my parents were there. My mom had not that long ago been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So the fact that she could be there and be somewhat aware was something really important to me. My dad and my mom watched every episode of Off the Record, every single one. My dad would record it. They would go away over Christmas for a couple of weeks. My dad would record the show. I say, Dad, why are you recording the show? The day you get back, there'll be another show. He goes, well, I'd like to see what you're doing. So I had incredibly supportive parents. I would say that I am who I am, that I've had the confidence to come out and talk about my mental illness, for instance, because of my parents, because I came from a house where I was protected, where I was adored, and where I knew my parents would support me no matter what I did. So that was a big night. The fact that my mom and dad were both there.
Yeah. That's awesome. We don't ever get to where we are without a little support along the way. And it's fantastic. So you still do something called the Lands blog. Not sure about the frequency anymore, but here's one where you were a tad agitated. Let's roll that back.
Mental illness like depression as something that we all go through, as just something that happens in your life. We all have ups and downs. Well, we do all have ups and downs. If you're lucky, your down is not an illness, but rather a reflection of something that's going on in your life. It makes me mad because it really does damage people. It prevents people from coming out and sharing, and it prevents them from getting the sympathy around them that they need to be able to cope. We all go through it sometime. No, we don't all go through it sometime. We all go through bad times. But we don't all go through this illness. Sicknowweek.com, 24 hours a day, 335 days a year. Why are we here, Case?
You're pissed off.
I am super pissed off.
Yeah, your daughter, Casey, and Corey, you worked with them both. And you were pissed off. What changes would you want to see?
Well, there's all these misconceptions about mental illness. I mean, we started out, I don't know, like 50 years ago, say, where, there was total ignorance. And I was in that group of ignorant. I remember that someone that my father-in-law worked with took time off work, like 3 months off work, to go, I think he went to what was, I guess, the Clark Institute back then, now CAMH. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, wow, like, that guy must be like really weak, really sensitive. Mm-hmm. Like, we all go through bad times. Hello? But we don't all have to take time off work. I remember thinking that. I never said that, but I remember thinking that. And then the first day that I told you about this epiphany, when I heard my father-in-law say that I had changed, that first day I realized, oh my God, I'm so wrong. I wanted to go around and apologize to everyone that I had seen that I had these thoughts about. I never said anything to anyone, but I was just in that category, which was, okay, we know it sucks, but it's a mental illness, not a physical illness. And I think that's the world that we live in. And gradually, we've seen some of the light. But one of the darknesses that remains is the thought that, when people say, oh, I know you're a big mental health advocate, that's great because we all go through it sometime. And that's what made me mad. No, we don't all go through it sometime. Mm-hmm. We all go through bad times in our life. We all have losses in our life. We all have things that scare us in our life and anxieties. My dad died 3 years ago. That makes me sad, but it doesn't make me depressed. I went for a prostate biopsy, and waiting for the results, I was anxious. That's not anxiety, the illness. That's life. We don't all go through, the feeling that you described, this feeling of hopelessness, being in this deep, dark hole that we believe at the time is never going away and has robbed us of everything we used to know. Mental illness steals who we are and replaces us bit by bit with someone that we don't know and someone that we don't like. That's what it is. It's not something we all go through. See, I'm getting mad again.
Yeah. I mean, the old pull up your bootstraps, suck it up, like these. Yeah. You can't suck it up if you're in that place. It's just impossible to do that. But there is help, right?
One of the things that one of the metaphors that I use is that, when you have serious depression, you've lost the ability to experience joy. It's not that good things don't happen to you. You can buy a lottery ticket when you have depression, and your chances are exactly the same. But you can't feel the joy. You win the lottery, $10 million. Half your brain says, this is good. I'll be able to, do this with the money, do this for my family. But the other part of your brain that feels joy wouldn't feel any. And it wouldn't matter whether that 10 million, whether someone said, okay, we'll make it 20, we'll make it 30. You can't feel joy. And that means when you wake up in the morning and nothing is going to be joyous over the course of the day, that you're not going to feel it. That could, that can be devastating. So I think that hearing somebody say that can be really empowering, to hear it and realize, wow, that guy, I always thought he was a jerk on television, but wow, he's kind of describing me because that's how I feel. And to hear that can be really empowering.
Yeah, we can learn from hearing our stories from other people, right? And knowing that there is a way out. So, okay, we're partnered with a group called,
Joe. Sorry, I wanted to add to something before, because make no mistake, I'm trying to dominate this interview. I'm trying to dominate Joe Tilley on his own podcast. But You mentioned that you're an alcoholic. Did you go to AA?
Yeah.
Okay. So my point is, why does AA work? Many different reasons. It's genius when you think about it. But one of the reasons why it works is that you're in a room surrounded by people who understand you. And that is so powerful. If you could get people with depression in a room to sit around and talk about how it's deprived them of their lives and how tough it's been, and hear how other people experience it, hear, how they perceive the loneliness that comes from it. That's so empowering. The idea of being in a room filled with people who understand you and people who won't judge you is huge.
Yeah, and it's like the first for me was like I going to the meetings. I'm listening to the messages, and I realized they're just like me. They can't do it alone. I did not physically have the ability to not drink alone. I just did not. But by doing taking some steps and working with others and having a spiritual awakening and all this stuff that happens as a result, you know what? I can do this one day at a time, and I just can. And so I have for 33 years. So
that's amazing.
It is.
33 years.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
We often talk about it, that alcohol is everywhere, right? I mean, if you are a cocaine addict, it's possible for you to travel in circles and live your life without being around people who are doing cocaine or seeing cocaine. But you can't do that with liquor. Like, it's there all the time, everywhere you go.
Right. It's the food addicts, run into the same kind of thing. It's everywhere. And you have to, again, it's meeting people who have gone through it and kind of come up the other side and how they did it and doing what they do and just always staying in one day. And if you can't stay in one day, stay in an hour, stay in 5 minutes, stay in this moment, because all you have to do is get to this moment and then you can, you'll be okay. So anyway, we're partnered with a group called Believe, Become, Be You. It's a mentorship program for kids 10 to 17, inspired by the late Sean Gindy, led by Papa Jack. And what's the message you would have for any kids who might be struggling to find their way today?
I think that my message for kids that are trying to find their way, if it's a mental health thing, that you have to talk about it. That if you don't share with anyone, you will live in misery until you actually do, because you can't do it yourself. Like I tell people this all the time. If you felt crappy every morning you wake up, and crappy is not a medical term, obviously, but if you've been depressed or anxious and really your illness is dominating your life, if you felt that way for the last 6 months every day, when you wake up tomorrow, you will feel that way again. It's not going away on its own. You got to get rid of it. And you got to start by telling one person. Sharing is incredibly difficult for people. I understand that. But you got to pick one person to share with. And every time you do it, you get better. You need a place where you can say, I'm not doing well. I mean, the tragedies that we see because people don't share, because no one knew, is awful. And doesn't have to be that way. And I would say to the parents of those that you described, make it part of the discussion at the dinner table. Like, not every night, but you talk about, drinking and driving and sex and safe sex and bullying and the value of getting an education and all these things that you try to instill in your kids. Talk about mental health. Talk about it. Open the door even a crack. The ally of suicide is silence. When we don't talk about it, we leave the door open a crack. And I'm not saying that, it sounds like a terribly easy solution. It's not a solution, but it's a start. Talk saves lives.
Yeah, and I've heard it said before, and I don't know if it was Einstein, but somebody said it. You're not going to fix a sick mind with the same mind that created the sickness. So it's, something has to change, but there is changes possible, right?
Did you say Einstein said that?
I don't know who said it. Somebody said
Let's
it.
go with Einstein. I mentioned Einstein in his speech. I said, depression robs us of our self-esteem. And if Albert Einstein had depression, he would think, wow, I ain't no Einstein.
What are you, Einstein? So, if you want to follow Michael's journey, go to sicknotweak.com or michaellandsberg.ca. And Michael, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking this time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this platform. Thank you for asking me good questions, picking good clips, and right back at you. Every comment that you gave me, I always respected you because you were you. It was like Joe Tilley. No one else would do a sportscast like Joe Tilley. And that I admire, as opposed to the 3 games in the NHL tonight, the high-flying Blackhawks. Like, everyone does it that way. So, I'm a fan.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And I'm a fan. So, all right, when we come back, we'll talk about alcoholism addiction with Justin Bourne. Stick around. In 1992, the best locally owned restoration companies came together with one goal: to make disaster recovery better for Canadians. And to this day, DKI remains one of the only 100% Canadian-owned disaster restoration groups in the market. Fire, flood, or storm damage. When things go wrong, the right help makes all the difference. With the right tools and local expertise, we handle everything from emergency response to full-scale restoration, getting homes and businesses back on track the right way. Because a home is more than 4 walls, a business is more than a building, and recovery is about more than repairs. When you choose DKI, you're choosing a company that's put Canada first since 1992. Locally owned, nationally backed, Canadian through and through. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Hearing loss doesn't have to mean missing out. At Hear Canada, we help you take charge with a complimentary hearing assessment, because confidence starts with clarity. Discover hearing aids, accessories, and expert care at your local hearing center. Not sure where to start? Our Hearing Health Guide has the basics for you or a loved one. It worked for us. Book your free assessment today at hearcanada.com. Conditions may apply.
That, I haven't really been, I haven't publicly discussed it much yet. I am someone who made a significant life change a few years ago. My dad has been through rehab a few times. That's something that him and I have both had our challenges related to this. And part of the conversation that I want to be a part of in the future is, normalizing a little bit that some of these struggles are real for families and what they go through and how it affects families, right? A lot of people deal in Al-Anon, which is, for families of alcoholics and what their personal struggles are. So, definitely more coming out in the book. And I do want to be a voice on this topic in the months ahead. I am excited for the book to come out because I feel like, a lot easier than me sending a series of tweets or something like that, but a great effect on our family. And I think a greater effect in the National Hockey League, in the minors, in the hockey culture in general. Then we talk about and then we accept, I I thought it was great that Bobby Ryan went through what he went through and came back stronger. And we had him on our show this past week. It sounds like he's doing great too. So it's an important cause, and a lot of people struggle, and the pandemic didn't help. So something I want to help raise money for in the years ahead.
Yeah, we've made some great strides in terms of mental health. Well, we made some strides, let's put it that way, in terms of mental health and addiction. The Sick Not Weak and Bill Let's Talk, and it's really important for people who have struggled, because the tendency for us when we're in our cups, as they say, is to isolate, and so which is the worst thing you can do. And I got a real dangerous place here, that I live when I'm alone. And when we reach out and ask for help, great things can happen. Like, I have a life that's, beyond my wildest dreams. Yeah. 30 days, one day at a time, right? 30 years, one day at a time. So, yeah, so it's a great thing. And I'm always trying to make it clear that, if you do have a problem, reach out and ask for help. There's so much help out there if you ask for it. And it doesn't make you a weak person if you ask for help. And what happens, though, is you become a very, very strong person as a result of getting that help. For me, I've been able to be the type of husband and father and now grandfather that I basically the best I could possibly be. I mean, we lost a son to addiction, right? We lost Spencer to an overdose in 2014. So, it's a tough thing to go through, but this affects us all, especially in today's day and age. And it's like, reach out, ask for help. And if you can't help, do so. That's my,
you know what, the one thing that I've seen with people who struggle sometimes is, everyone's kind of waiting for like a rock bottom or something bad to happen before making a change. But talk to enough people who struggle with alcoholism, and there are low bottom alcoholics who just decide that they've had enough, and before they ruin their lives, they want to make a change. And I looked for that at times when I struggled in the past, for people who made the change before the disaster, and they can be tougher to find, but they're out there. You don't have to wait for the bad thing. So anyone who's struggling, there's plenty of people to talk to, and it's never too early to make that change.
Yeah, the old saying, the garbage truck is headed for the dump, but you can get off at any time.
That's right, you can get off.
Right?
Discover the secret to timeless vitality at Renew Medical Center in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Our specialists unravel the science of aging, tailoring plans to defy its effects. Experience cutting-edge regenerative therapies such as stem cells and exosomes, addressing aging at its core.
It's a wonderful spot, and I highly recommend it for whatever you may need, whether you just want to feel better, you want to look better, have basically a quality of life, just to ramp it up a little bit as we age.
Liberate yourself from aging-related concerns, where accountability, technology, and passion for regenerative medicine converge. Begin your path to peak health and wellness with us. Schedule your appointment today at renewpv.com and elevate your quality of life.
Parents, what's the biggest fear for kids 10 to 14? A future they think they can't handle. At Believe, Become, Be You, we know confidence in the future is a habit we can build. Our course doesn't just prepare kids for the future, it seeds them with skills they will use now. For a limited time, the I Believe in Me Foundation is offering the first 1,000 kids and their parents 1 year free access. This priceless opportunity will save you over $2,000. This isn't just a course. It's a journey in developing life-enhancing skills that will grow with your child, fostering gritty minds, creative futures, and better bonds. Get signed up now at BelieveBecomeBeYou.com. That's BelieveBecomeBeYou.com.
And we want to thank all the folks who make the show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian sports. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, wherever you get your podcast from. Also, Check out the show on YouTube. All of our past great shows are on there. Clips, shorts. Like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Our socials are at Joe Swiss Tilley on Instagram and Threads, Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show on Facebook. Thanks once again to Michael Landsberg for joining us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. I'm Joe Tilley, and this fall I want you to join me for the adventure of a lifetime in Peru. We're talking about a 9-day guided journey through some of the most awe-inspiring sights on Earth, starting at just $19.99. We'll explore Lima, Peru's lively capital. You'll experience rich history, beautiful architecture, and world-class cuisine. You'll also wander the vibrant streets of Cusco, where Inca heritage blends seamlessly with colonial charm, and visit the stunning Sacred Valley, known for its dramatic landscapes, ancient Inca ruins, and charming traditional villages. And the big moment? We'll ride the scenic Inca train to spend a night in Machu Picchu village, waking up early to witness a magical morning light over the ancient citadel, a once-in-a-lifetime experience you'll never forget. Craving more? Extend your trip with a stay at a luxury Amazon lodge, or visit Lake Titicaca and meet the locals on the floating islands. This all-inclusive package covers international and domestic flights, expert guided tours, entrance fees, and stays at hand-picked hotels. And here's the kicker. Book now to receive a free upgrade to first-class boutique-style hotels and a direct flight from Toronto on selected dates. Don't miss it. Let's discover the magic of Peru together. Rooted in 60 years of tradition, Sleepy Hollow is a private golf club with a friendly community of members just minutes from Toronto. With mature trees and rolling fairways, Sleepy Hollow provides a challenging and enjoyable experience for passionate golfers. Enjoy great golf, amazing dining, and a picturesque patio second to none. Visit sleepyhollowcountryclub.com.